Hi, I'm Kelly Lost, librarian for the Center for the Study of Ethics in the Professions here at the Illinois Institute of Technology. This video is meant to help you gain a better understanding of what we mean when we talk about the terms ethics, morality, and the law, as well as introduce you to what a code of ethics is and the role it plays in ethical decision-making. When I teach ethics workshops here at IIT, I usually start by asking students what they think of when they hear the terms ethics and morality. Are these terms the same, or do they mean something different? I usually have one or two students who in the class respond that morality is something to do with religious or social beliefs, and ethics has something to do with doing the right thing or treating others as you'd like to be treated. And this is a very good start. However, let's quickly take a few minutes to look at some common misconceptions about morality and ethics before we dig into what these terms actually mean. First, ethics and morality are not about feelings or our conscience. Feeling that something might be wrong in a given situation may be a sign that there is an ethical question or issue at stake, but is not enough to base our decisions on just what we feel. Ethical decision-making is a rational and practical process that helps us decide how our actions affect others. Ethics and morality are also not about religious beliefs or how we were raised. Religion can help us set high ethical standards for ourselves and can provide intense motivations for behaving in an ethical way. But religion sometimes falls short in having us address the complex ethical problems that we often face in daily life. Ethics and morality also goes beyond just following the law. Laws often reflect ethical standards, but they can also lag behind ethics, or there may be areas where it is impossible to create laws that adequately address certain situations or issues. Finally, ethics and morality are not just whatever society accepts as right. Morality is something that should be common to all societies, and ethical standards should be universally applicable. While many cultural standards are indeed ethical, such as treating others with respect, there can also be socially accepted behaviors that are unethical. So for instance, assuming the majority of Germans in Nazi Germany approved of the persecution of the Jews, intolerance towards Jews was right relative to Nazi Germany's societal standards. But if we apply universal ethical standards to this example, we soon realize that the right of every human being to be free from persecution. With all of this, how can we define the terms morality and ethics, and what are the differences between these two terms? First, morality is the standards of conduct that everyone wants everyone else to follow, even if it means everyone else is following them would mean you have to follow them as well. So if others follow these standards, you have to follow these same standards. These moral standards are things like don't kill, don't steal, keep your promises, and respect the rights of other human beings. Moral standards must be well-founded standards of right and wrong that prescribe what humans ought to do, usually in terms of rights, obligations, benefits to society, fairness, or specific virtues. Such standards are adequate because they are supported by consistent and well-founded reasons. Ethics are any set of morally permissible standards of conduct that each member of some particular group wants every other member of that group to follow, even if it means that they would have to follow these same standards themselves. So ethics are the moral standards that apply to any specific group of people, such as a profession, a workplace, or even a team. When we're talking about ethics, we are talking about what are the standards of conduct that we want our team members, colleagues, and others to follow, even if it means we have to follow these same moral standards ourselves. So now that we've talked about morality and ethics, let's quickly talk the difference between laws and ethics. Laws are often extremely relevant to discussions about ethics, but we must be careful to distinguish what we can legally do and what we can ethically do. These two things are often very different. Ethics are the aspirational standards or the goals that we want all members of our profession, team, or business to try and reach. Hold paramount the safety and welfare of the public, treat colleagues, clients, and others with respect, keep private information confidential when asked to do so, and give credit where credit is due, etc. Laws are standards that set the bottom line for what is considered acceptable behavior, and these standards are also enforceable. If you break the law, there is often some sort of punishment for doing so. For instance, you are driving a friend home late at night and see a stop sign at a four-way intersection in a local neighborhood. There's no one around, and it is tempting just to ignore it and keep driving. However, you know that as a driver you are legally required to stop whenever you see a stop sign. If you run through the intersection without stopping and a policeman sees you, you're going to get a ticket. The law sets the minimum standard for what a person needs to do when he sees a stop sign. However, as an ethical person, you know that the moral thing to do, even if there is no chance of a policeman being there to give you a ticket, is to slow down and look to see if others are coming. It's dark, and there might be pedestrians walking across the street or another car pulling up to the intersection. You are going to stop because you don't want to cause anyone harm. Even if there was no stop sign at the intersection, you might feel the need to drive slowly, just to avoid causing anyone else harm. So ethics calls upon us to go above and beyond what is required by the law and think about how our actions may influence other stakeholders, such as pedestrians or other drivers in this situation. One final point about laws. 99% of the time, it is ethical to follow the laws of the society in which you are living and working. Laws are usually based on ethical standards, but not always. If you look back in history, you can find many examples of laws that are unethical, like laws legalizing slavery in the United States in the mid-19th century. In the 1% of cases where laws are not supported by ethical standards, it would actually be considered unethical to follow these laws. This is another reason why ethics go far beyond just following the law. So while these cases are extremely rare, it's always good to think critically about the ethical standards that are behind the laws that you are asked to follow. Knowing the difference between terms like morality, ethics, and the law is extremely helpful, but how can you learn more about what the ethical standards are for a specific profession, workplace, or organization? Ethical standards are often expressed as codes of ethics or a code of conduct. Codes of ethics are usually written by a group of people to codify the specific ethical standards that they want fellow members of the group to follow. For example, IIT has put together its expectations for how students will behave in their Code of Student Conduct. This code talks about how students will avoid plagiarism and academic dishonesty and treat their fellow students, teachers, and staff with courtesy and respect. In the same way, professional associations such as the National Society for Professional Engineering, the American Psychological Society, and other organizations have often developed codes of ethics that outline how members of that specific profession will treat their clients, fellow professionals. Check out the website of any business and you are likely to find a code of ethics governing the conduct of its employees, contractors, and even the governing board. Codes of ethics outline the ethical standards of our organization and are like technical standards in a number of ways. They protect the public, serve the needs of their clients, and help support other standards. So when I visit my doctor, for instance, I assume that he has the needed technical knowledge to diagnose or treat me. Otherwise, there would be no point to my visit. In the same way, I assume that he, as a doctor, knows and follows the American Medical Association Codes of Ethics, and will not, for instance, share details of my health with everyone he meets on the street. If patients like me did not know that doctors would keep health information confidential, it would be much less likely they would feel comfortable sharing personal health information with their doctor. In this way, ethical standards, like technical standards, help members of the public trust professionals to do their job in a proper way. Codes of ethics not only outline expectations of behavior, they also can serve as a guide when you are trying to find an answer to ethical issues that arise. For instance, I would like to use some of the data gathered by my iPro team for a project in another class, but I'm not sure if I can ethically do this. If my team has adopted a code of ethics that talks about making sure team members are given credit for their contributions and ideas, I should be able to use the code to find an answer to this question. I know I need to give proper credit to the members of my iPro team who compiled the data in the first place, and would probably want to talk with them to make sure I have their permission and know how they would like their contributions to be acknowledged. Codes of ethics are also not static documents. Good codes of ethics are rewritten on a regular basis. An example of this is the proliferation of new provisions to codes of ethics that address issues of environmental ethics and sustainability. 50 years ago, many architectural and engineering codes made only passing reference to how professionals should try and limit negative environmental impacts when they're making decisions. If you are interested in learning more about codes of ethics, visit the Center's Codes of Ethics collection at ethics.iit.edu/ecodes. There we have a collection of over 2,000 codes of ethics from all different professions, businesses, and other organizations, as well as some more information about the role codes of ethics play in ethical decision-making. So you now should have a basic understanding of what we mean by the terms morality, ethics, and the law, and how these terms fit together, as well as what codes of ethics are. Morality are the standards of conduct that we as rational people want everyone else to follow, even if this means we have to follow these same rules. So if I ask everyone to try and tell the truth, I have to also avoid lying as well. Ethics are any set of morally permissible standards of conduct that each member of some particular group wants every other member of that group to follow, even if this means I have to follow these same rules. These ethical standards can vary from iPro team to iPro team, depending on the type of project you're working on. For instance, Keeping an interviewer's data private would be an ethical standard that a team doing a survey might want to have, whereas it would be far less important for a IPER team working on designing a better car. This team might have safety as its major ethical standard, but each of these rules will always be based on moral standards. Laws are the standards that set the bottom line for how we can behave and are enforceable. If I break a law, there's likely to be some sort of punishment. Laws are usually, but not always, based on ethical standards, and ethics often ask me to go above and beyond what is required by the law. Codes of ethics are one major way in which a group makes their ethical standards known, and these codes can and should be used when considering an ethically complex situation. Even if your team decides not to write a formal code of ethics, it is a good idea for you to spend a few minutes discussing the ethical standards you think are going to be important for your team, and make sure that everyone is on the same page and knows what is expected of them as a member of the group. I hope this video has been helpful to you and your team, and if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact the Ethics Center for more information.